Hey, everybody. Welcome to another weekly edition of Coffee Talk. This is your host, Dan, and I have such wonderful guests for you today. I just feel a bit verklempt. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic. It's ADA, not ADA. Just mingle along. Anyway, this is not coffee talk. This is yet another reference into 90s popular culture that most people will not get that are watching this because you're young and you should feel bad about yourself. Something like that. Anyway, we do have a good mainstream episode ready to go here. And of course, to my
chagrin. You're right.
That way. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so Brian, hero of the Federation, is joining us today, and Brian is going to do things that I can't do, like still be a Steelers fan even after that horrible. Anyway, we're not going to go there, but we do have on here right there we do have none other than Rick the Kraken McCracken with us today, and Rick's official title is actually the CEO of ADA, not ADA, and you know who you are that say ADA. Okay, where I come from, them are fighting words. So please help me welcome Rick. Thanks for coming to the mainstream, Rick.
Yeah, Dan, thanks for clarifying that, Brian. Good to see you again. Dan, old podcasting mate, and I'm glad you got that out correctly. It's pronounced Ada. It is a formal name for Ada Lovelace. It is not ADA. But hey, to each their own. Do with it what you will. Good to see you guys. So we're going to dig into this podcast and have a good chat. And I'm pretty happy about this. It's Taco Tuesday. So CEO of ADA is a rotational thing. I'm not always the CEO of ADA, only on the second and third Tuesdays of every month. And on the fifth Tuesday, when there's 5 Tuesdays in the month, I got that one covered too. Adam Dean covers Fridays and Saturdays on occasion. So anyway.
So basically, you are the CEO of ADA when Wimpy pays back his money for his hamburgers. Because, he would gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today, yet another piece of popular culture that 95% of you will not get. But, guys like us, Brian and Rick, we get that, right? Yeah.
See the gray in the beard? I get it.
Yeah. You see the gray like everywhere?
Yeah, I got gray in the beard too, right?
Yeah. Your beard is so gray, it's clear, Rick. Anyway, you know what, Rick? It's kind of cool to have you on the other side of the sides that we have in podcasts. Anyway, the reason I say that is because Rick, and look, if you don't know who Rick is, you should re-examine your life. And I say that, in fact, I'm going to say, if you don't know who Rick is, you should re-examine your life. And, full stop.
It's kind of like Elon Musk, right?
Yeah. Like, what is it? Full stop.
Yeah.
Like that.
I don't think there's much more could be said.
Anyway, listen. The reason why I say that is because Rick has been around forever. Like, as in, before time was time. I mean, Rick was actually the host or one of the hosts of Cardano Live. And that was
Cardano
actually,
effect. Yeah.
And that
It's funny because I started doing YouTube videos because I was watching Sebastian and Philippe do videos, and I watched Charles' videos, and that kind of inspired me a little bit. The first ecosystem person I saw doing them was Sebastian. Sebastian was highly technical, and Philippe's were highly both philosophical, financial, and how does this apply to the humans? And then there was a little gap, and I was like, and I would watch Crypto Dad, and he's pretty funny, and I'd say, well, you know what? There needs to be a little bit of technical how to do this, right? That's where I got started. I said, okay, let's do some technical how to, and so people can see how the technology works. Sebastian shows them how it works under the hood, like the big picture. Well, actually, from the big picture all the way down to the fine engineering details. Philippe would explain to people, this is how it fits into society. This is how I see things, moving forward and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, how does the human actually push the button? That's what I get into, because that's what I did where I used to work was, when the user starts pushing the button, does the magic happen? Or does it go wah, 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 and the thing just falls over? Yeah, and so that brought us to kind of what the topic of the podcast that we were discussing before we went on the air was a little bit about like the history, like where did I first get started in Cardano, and if you guys wanted to touch on that, because I'd like to rewind the history all the way back to how did I first get into Bitcoin? If that's okay, I'll give you like the short version. I mean, I could be here for hours, but we don't want to do that to the viewers. And so if I go back to around the 2013 timeframe ish, roughly somewhere in that time frame, I first heard of Bitcoin, and I heard from a few people. You'd see it in very tiny fragments of information, and my son told me a little bit about it. The first question I asked myself was, how do you make a digital piece of money, a Bitcoin, and I can't just right-click, copy, paste, right? Because that's what I've been doing with computers for years, copy, paste. How does it not get hacked? Because that's what was happening on the legacy financial systems for years, like they get hacked into. And so I said, well, how does that work? And it was curiosity. So the curiosity is when I started peeling back the layers of onion, and I'm still not at the middle of the onion. I'm still peeling back these layers of stuff, right? And that curiosity, I said, okay, how does it not get copied? And why is this worth anything? And when I first started off with Bitcoin, I downloaded that old, really thick, heavy Electronium Bitcoin wallet, right? Where you downloaded the full node and it took it a day to synchronize, even though it didn't take a full day, but it took a while for the node to be ready to where you could actually use it. And it was curiosity that got me thinking, what does this do and how does it work? And fortunately, but around that point in time, CZ Binance had started Binance. Like, I don't remember when Binance started, but Dan was there for that probably. Dan probably remembers when that happened.
Yeah. I was like, what the hell is Binance, and how and why do we need Binance when we have Poloniex?
Yeah, and or the different the pioneers of the exchange space was the only way I could get Bitcoin, unless you go on a Reddit or some kind of chat channel, whatever, there's some type of chat channel, and you do a peer-to-peer, and you say, okay, if you send this to this address, and I thought, oh, that's not very useful. I'm a very practical person. I want things to be practical, useful. I want them to be secure, and I want them to make sense, right? So I started playing around with it, and I think I got my first just tiny fragments. I didn't buy it for the financial value at that point. I was like, well, it's $250, so I don't want to buy a whole Bitcoin to play with it. So I'm going to buy like a quarter of a Bitcoin. That way it only costs me, $50, and then I can play around with it. And it was interesting. And what was funny in that time frame is the speed of the network. You couldn't really tell. You had to read the wallet. There weren't a lot of websites for monitoring how things were working. And then the number went up, right? So I had bought that first tiny little fragment when Bitcoin was like $250, and I had $50 worth. But then the number went up to 1,000, and I was like, wait a second, the number went up, right? That's interesting. Okay, I'll play. And then so I got another tiny little fragment, another tiny little fragment. And then the number went back down. And I was like, what just happened? That $500 that I had put in the following 5 or 8 months, that at $800 or $1,000 Bitcoin is now only worth $300, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So if I swear on here, it's probably okay. But and so that was, and it's still that way today. And the reason why I point this out with Bitcoin is history repeats itself as more and more blockchains proliferate. That repeats itself. People start off with a spark of curiosity, and they say, "What is that, or why is that? Why are people talking about this? Why do I see it in the news?" Okay, and that spark of curiosity might draw someone's attention just enough to where they go, I'll take a look at it. I'll have a think on that. And I'm talking about the average person side. I'm not talking about business to business. I'm not talking about people who are trying to solve problems. I'm talking about the regular person, which is the vast majority of people out there, is just the regular people, and they hear about crypto. And so that history repeats itself, and then it goes on to Cardano. The first thing I saw on Cardano was a whiteboard video, right? And then the legendary
like many.
Yeah, like many. Yeah. And so what happened, well, I didn't go right straight from Bitcoin to Cardano. So it was Bitcoin, then it was Ethereum. And I was like, oh, well, this Ethereum is only $62, and that Bitcoin is up like $800 or $1,000. I don't have enough money. I'm thinking like a regular person. I get it, guys. I understand. A normal human being, I looked at Bitcoin and go, that's $1,000, and Ethereum is only $62. I'm going to get an Ethereum. Why? Because now I can buy 2 Ethereums for $120. Right? Yeah. That is how human beings think. I don't care what your mental gymnastics and mathematics say. That's how human beings think.
Yeah, and I bought that stuff for like $70.
And you bought it for $60 or $70 Ethereum. I played around with Ethereum. It was great. And then I said, all right, so what is so much better about Ethereum? And here's where I first caught on to Ethereum. Is at the time I was playing with all kinds of shit coins. There's just so many shit coins that died. They're gone. They're no longer here. One of them was called Netcoin, which is like a fork of Litecoin. And my sons were mining. We were doing proof of work mining on Feathercoin and Darkcoin. And I was doing proof of work mining on Netcoin, and Netcoin just completely died. It became absolute nothing. Feathercoin and Darkcoin kind of transformed into something that it is today. I don't know. One of them turned into like Litecoin or something like that. And they started evolving, and Bitcoin started forking. They forked into Bitcoin Cash. Wait a second. So if I take my Bitcoin address, where I have this little half a Bitcoin, and I put it over there in that wallet, now I have a Bitcoin Cash, and now I have a Bitcoin Gold. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting, right? And so. And then the number went up again. Oh my gosh, the number went up again. And so, in that curiosity cycle repeats itself. Then I was like, well, this Ethereum doesn't seem like the be all end all, because, and the gas fees weren't too bad at the time. The part about Ethereum that annoyed me, and it's still a problem today, was chasing around the ERC20 tokens with little bits of ETH, right? And I was like, okay, and I got this ERC20 over here, and I'm going to hold it there. And I paid, $200 for that. And the number went up, and then it went down to 0, right? But I got to go chase it. So how do I get this crappy ERC20 token out of my wallet? Well, I can't. It's stuck there. So the dog's bark. It's just me with dogs today.
Well, at least all your dogs are barking, Rick. That's good to know.
Yeah, good thing I'm sitting down.
Don't break in the Rick's house.
So, and so you guys, you can understand that. And so I chase around the ERCs and say, okay, I'm going to put all of these garbage ones over here and keep all the good ones over here. And then the good ones started dying off, and I put them over in the garbage wallet. And I'm like, God damn. And so that was like, so then Cardano came along, and I was like, and this was in a very short period of time. This was only between like 2016 and then late 2017. And I was like, oh, this looks like it's made correctly, because at the time I was working for Progeny Systems Corporation, right? And I worked between the labs and the classrooms and training the users and getting feedback from the field and bringing it back into the lab and getting, all that kind of stuff. It was really cool. I loved working there. But user interface is important and feedback is important. And and the most important thing in the lab was we built things correctly. We had a process. It was very rigorous to make sure that when these systems go out, they are highly robust, and they're also a type of decentralized system where they can either operate on their own or they can interact with others. Okay, so extremely robust systems that can communicate. And so I was looking at Cardano going, aha, these guys got it right. I don't care how long it takes. It's going to take a while to get it right. We understood where Cardano was at then, and we understood the roadmap to go. The roadmap wasn't called Byron and Shelley and Basho and so on and Goguen until I think mid to late 2018. Late 2018, yeah, I think it was summer of 2018. The roadmap actually kind of formed. The general ideas were there; those were already in the writings that were out there, but then the roadmap formed, and I was like, you know what, this one's getting built correctly. This Cardano is they're putting in a lot of effort into building it well from the ground up. So then I leaned heavy into Cardano, and I also found it wildly entertaining, and I got to meet cool folks like early on with Philippe and Sebastian and some folks on the forum, and then eventually got into podcasting, and then from there it was just all a matter of progression of following the roadmap. That's the one thing about Cardano. These roadmaps change. You heard about on Ethereum, you heard about Casper, and you heard about all these other things that never really came to fruition, or they kind of mutated into something else. But that whole, Byron, Goguen, Shelley, Basho, Voltaire era from the mid 2018 as the roadmap took form. There's a plan here, guys. And it's being executed. That plan is being executed upon.
Okay? Well, I remember originally. I remember when we originally came out with that was actually I was doing videos like a voiceover for Cardano, and this was before mainnet. And so I did this. It's like an well, basically, I put it together with the help of then the small creative department that IOHK had. So it's one of those, like the info animation thing that it's an Adobe Photoshop or After Effects. I forgot what. No, it wasn't Photoshop. It was like After Effects, I think, that we used. And it was a sold package, right? So you get all these different components that do things, and you just kind of put them together to make a video, to make like an animation out of it. And so I was tasked, and it's probably roaming the internet somewhere. I don't know where, but it was on the IOG YouTube channel for the longest time, but I think they took it out. But it's probably roaming the internet somewhere. So it was this video that I put together with this infographic about describing the roadmap, right, and what Cardano is. And this was before even Daedalus, before Daedalus came out, because I remember I was saying the Daedalus wallet, and then it said in development, or like coming soon or something like that. And so the original roadmap was actually it's Cardano SL, Cardano CL, and Cardano AL. So Cardano computation layer, settlement layer, and application layer. And so that was I guess that was kind of the original roadmap that we had, because I remember talking about that in the video. And how that was going to work. I mean, I guess things kind of changed a little bit, or not a little bit, but quite a bit. But yeah, that was before, and then I remember when the roadmap came out, like the who now, the what, like Basho, like the poet, Japanese dude. Yeah. Okay, all right, Goguen, like which Goguen? Like just anyway.
That was just a way of defining the buckets of how to build the system out, starting with the core of the blockchain and then building out into
No, it's
Dan, that we might end up revisiting that original roadmap you said with the settlement layer, compute layer, application layer, because we're revisiting the compute layer, because here's the problem blockchains we're running into is, all right, so you have layer ones, settlement layers. We're probably going to come back to that, Dan, eventually, hopefully within 5 years or so. And now you have side chains or partner chains. Call them what you will. They have a consensus mechanism, yet they can talk to the main chain in some way. So you have the main chain, then you have the side chains, then you have the layer twos. Now the problem is you're fragmenting the liquidity and you're fragmenting the user experience to the point where it is difficult. And I'll give you an example. Like I've been playing with Base recently, and I'm a fan of Polygon. I play with Polygon, and those are layer twos. Polygon is a layer two. Base is a layer two. And getting from one layer two to the other is a user experience nightmare. Okay. It's okay for us crypto OGs. Yeah, it's fine. We're good. Like for us, oh, it's easy. You just click on this. I mean, just a few days ago, I almost made the mistake of sending a little bit of value. I always do tests with a little bit of money, and I almost sent it into oblivion. And I'm like, wow, I was that close to sending it into oblivion. And I still have some transactions where I was coming down from Base and over to Polygon, and then down from Polygon across Ethereum. What I mean by down is you got Ethereum, and then if you want to go from like Base to Polygon, you got to bring it down onto bring something down onto Ethereum, and you pay a fee, right? $5 or $10, and then you want to send it over to somewhere else, and then you pay another $5 or $10. That's no good. That is not going to cut it in the real world. Absolutely not. $5 or $10 fees, and it's not just an Ethereum thing. But once you get up onto the layer twos, and Cardano is going to have that coming soon, later this year. You get onto the layer twos, the user experience is fantastic once you get there. So once you're on that layer two, the blockchain is fast, and that is important. The user experience is important. People don't want to wait 5 or 10 minutes. I remember thinking back to the Electronium wallet that I used for Bitcoin, circling back to the beginning of the podcast, the Electronium wallet. And I'm like, is that Bitcoin ever going to get there? I paid $200 for that 0.025 of a Bitcoin. It better get there. And I've been waiting for 2 hours, right? That is, and then just take that by orders of magnitude. Average human response time, I'm a gamer. I want a response time of milliseconds. Maybe 200 millisecond response time. If it starts getting longer than that, if you're starting to get up in a 300 or 400 millisecond response time, you're kind of losing me there, guys.
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the biggest issues, and it's kind of one of those things that really none of us like to talk about. But the whole thing when you send your crypto before you receive it on the other end, it's kind of like is it there? Is it gone? Is it in is it in oblivion? Is it in did it fall into the land of the lost? And this is the kind of stuff that you can't really expect the mainstream to to be okay with, because I'll tell you, I'll tell you how. I'm sure that about this, and this is really like this show is really all about talking about mainstream adoption and how does it look and how does the industry, the mainstream industries perceive it, and not not our crypto bubble. Actually people who are just regular people, the normies. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I remember this was a few years back, well, quite a while back, so ADA was actually sold in a Japanese network. The pre-sale was done through a Japanese network, and so the group that the groups that handled the pre-sale in Japan, they had I guess they like affiliate shops, right? So it's called the Dairi 10. So there's like an authorized retailer. What I forgot to translate it from Japanese, but anyway, it was an affiliate, right? And so these affiliate shops, and they would sell the vouchers to the Japanese, and they would also handle customer service. And so I remember when mainnet went live, we were sitting in the share office. I remember these two guys that came up from downstairs, because the share office is at the top floor and in downtown Osaka. And I was just sitting there and I'm overhearing this conversation, and these two guys and this old lady are sitting there, right? And I'm overhearing this conversation, but can't you just talk to them? And I'm like, and I just start catching a few bits of it, and then they say Cardano. I'm like, what? The what now? What did you say? And then I start listening to the conversation, and so she's asking them, well, can't you just call Cardano and tell them that I forgot my password for my wallet? And then they're like, no, there's nobody to call. Like it's you have to remember you have to have your seed phrase to restore your wallet. But I just don't have it, But can't you just go in there and get the ADA off? Like we can't, And these guys were like really trying to help her out, but I mean, she lost her seed phrase or her password or something, and I don't think she had her seed phrase. She lost her password. She couldn't get into her wallet, or couldn't redeem or something. So basically, she was kind of at a point of where she was stuck, and there was nothing these guys could do. Because they're not holding on to any private keys. They're not holding on to any passwords. Obviously, they're just they just handle the vouchers, and they still try to accommodate her. But there's just nothing that they could do. But she just did not understand that. She was thinking it like it's like a bank, in a bank, right? My money's gone. Where did my money go? Can we call somebody? Can I call customer service? Can I come into the branch? Can't we talk to corporate? Like that's how they think. So. You can't expect people who think that way to be okay with, oh yeah, by the way, you just sent your Bitcoin to this address of random numbers that there's no really, I mean, I guess you can check through these numbers and make sure that they're the same as the other numbers that were written, but not really. You'll screw up because there's too many of these upper lowercase number letters, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and by the way, it's going to be in oblivion for like 5 minutes to 10 minutes. And you don't even know if you sent it to the right address because you're gonna need to learn how to use an Explorer, and who the hell knows how to use that? I mean, even I get confused with Explorer sometimes. Like, so which one is my transaction? Because they bundle it and they bundle it and they bundle. So you look at it, it's like, wait a second, so that's my TX. No, that's it. Like, no, okay, wait, why does it say? It's like, oh, okay, no, it's a bundle. It's in a bundle with others. Like, you can't expect you can't expect regular people to be able to be okay with that kind of UX, and that's something that we really need to kind of look at as an industry and understand and really accept and not accept that, well, that's just how it's going to be. It's not how it's going to be. We need to change that. And so I wanted to kind of switch back to Cardano with you, Rick. So going forward, right? So we've been around, you've been around for a long time. I've been around for a long time. Remember the early Cardano, we know what Cardano is right now. So do you feel like the ecosystem stuck to the vision? I mean, are we, of course, things change, roadmaps change, but did we stick, is the spirit alive, right? Are we still moving along the way that was, incepted back in, back in those days? I mean, what is your observation?
Yeah, we're still on track. The timeline changes, and there's flexibility. You got to be able to flex to the technology and flex to the culture. So there's some flex there, but general idea still going good, still going strong. Takes a little longer than usual. That's fine. That doesn't bother a lot of people. Are other people going to poke fun of you and say, "Boy, you really are going slow"? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know we're going slow, but we're building the Cheops pyramid. We're not building a stick house. So yeah, we're on track, on target. So where are we at today? Well, so what's been accomplished extremely well in Cardano up to this point is the execution of the roadmap to get to the point where you have a highly decentralized system that has the capability to scale. That capability was built correctly. And it's extremely secure, and it's highly bug resistant, highly flaw resistant. Can anyone write a bug? Sure, I can write a bug right now and get people wrecked. Yep, I can do that. But the culture has understood the technology to the point where playing these games or deliberately putting exploits into a system, which I think is what happens a lot of times when these protocols get hacked, is one of two things. Either the exploit was put there deliberately, one, or number two, it was a rookie who was writing the code, and they never should have been writing that code in the first place. People have to understand, if you start writing software that retains people's money and you expose the public to that, oh, it's open source, it's on GitHub. Guess what? You expose the public to a hazard. You know, I can't go put dig a hole in the middle of a sidewalk and not put warning signs up and just let people fall in the hole. I imposed a hazard upon them. So people got to take that into consideration. So some of these rookie teams really need to get together, get their heads together, form bigger teams, and make better software that attaches to the blockchain. So because we're approaching the age of scalability, so there's a couple of things that need to happen. So where we're at today, we have the ability to put the scale in place. We have the security is rock solid. Of all the blockchains I use, I feel the most comfortable on Cardano in general. I feel that the money is secure. It's sendable. The user experience is good. Could it be a little faster? Sure, it could be a little bit faster, but that comfort is a nice feeling. Knowing that some random smart contract isn't going to blast away your value without you deliberately signing a visible transaction. So, but that needs to be kept in mind as we move forward, because a lot of times on these other wallets, on these other blockchains, what they did is they put some automation in there and said, okay, it's a tough user experience to have to read those finite addresses, right? You don't want to read these really complex addresses. As a matter of fact, a lot of modern wallets, they'll just display your native currency. They'll just display it in US dollar, yen, euro, whatever. And then that's the big number. And then the little number underneath says what the actual number is in cryptocurrency. They're trying to make it a better user experience by communicating to the user the way the users learn to communicate. So we've gotten to that point. We have all that in wallets. Cardano, fortunately, still has a full node wallet for people who want maximum decentralization and maximum immutability and maximum durability. There is a full node wallet, but these light wallets have gotten really good. So where are we going in the future, right? Where are we headed next? So where we're headed next is the layer 2s are coming online. There's multiple teams building multiple layer 2s on Cardano, right? So you have Leviathan, you have Midgard coming up, you have Hydra and any variants of Hydra, and there's going to be multiple Hydras with multiple intrahead Hydras, which is going to be another layer 2. That one's going to take a lot longer to get to multiple intrahead Hydra. And you got Gummy Worm, all layer 2s. Now this is fantastic because they're extremely fast. You know, so that's where we're headed next. And Pi has done demonstrations of Gummy Worm showing extremely high speed. Charles showed a demo of Hydra running a video game at full transaction speed, full video game speed, right? So that's the next step, is to get into that ultra high speed transaction capability while retaining the underlying security properties of the network. And that's where we're headed in 2024, early 2025. I know governance is talked about a lot, but the scalability, the parallel streams, everyone knows all these streams are running in parallel, and one stream might get done before the other. That's fine. And so that's where we're headed next. Now, where are we headed after that? Well, here's what I think things in Cardano really need to get headed. I like to compare it to kind of Polygon. There's some people over in Polygon who are really smart and figure this stuff out. And that is aggregation of values. Because once you have these side chains and layer 2s, how do you aggregate the value that's on these different layer 2s? Someone might pick Leviathan to put their DApp or DEX, and someone might pick Gummy Worm to put their DApp or DEX, and someone might pick Midgard to put their DApp. Someone might pick the Midnight sidechain. So if I'm a user on Cardano and I have Eternal Wallow on Cardano, and so I got some dust over there on Midnight, but I want to use the DEX that ultra high speed over there on Gummy Worm, right? How does it get from point A to point B? How do I get it, right? And that's the part I was playing with between Ethereum Base and Polygon, where I'm a pretty good technical guy when it comes to user interfaces. I can figure them out pretty quick, and I still wrestle with them a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, if I'm wrestling with it a little bit, this mom pop. So I got a story for you guys. I know I talk too much.
I think there's a competition between you and Dan, really, on who's the better talker here. I'd like it. I'm not gonna say anything.
Dan and I did the Cardano Effect podcast. It was like episode 9 or something like
Yeah,
that.
I remember it.
Like
It was
freaking
like
5,
episode-
6 years ago.
it
Jesus
was like
Christ, that was 6 years ago.
It was like episode 12 or episode 13. Yeah, and that was actually my very first podcast that I've ever done. Like I have never done one before for that kind of stuff. So it was literally like you were my first, Rick.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah,
I'll send you some chocolates.
It's very sweet. You didn't send me chocolates yet, so I kind of feel used, but hopefully you will. Hopefully you win. So tell us your story, and then actually I'd like to kind of talk to you a little bit about RWAs.
Oh yeah, RWAs, man. That's a really good topic to talk about here on Zengate Global. All right, so brief analogy. I'm going to give people an analogy. I'll write this up. I'll do it right up and post it on Twitter. All right, here's my analogy. Where is crypto? People, us as the humans, right? Oh, so to finish my last piece is aggregating the liquidity between these different layers and the different blockchains and making a user interface. So that's where we come back. We circle back to where you had the application layer. So where the application takes care of which layer am I on and where is the value, and then it provides the interface to the user. So it's a very simple and smooth experience, yet the user can still have the confidence that their funds are secure properly with the blockchain and not being absolutely obliterated by the Federal Reserve printing an unlimited supply of US dollars. So all that good stuff too. So the story is, all right, here's an analogy for, we are crypto zealots. We understand, the history of money. All those other people out there, they don't give a shit. They're trying to put money in an IRA, a 401k. They don't realize that they're being outprinted. They're trying to earn a living. They're biologists. They're plumbers. They're steel workers. I'm a Steelers fan, by the way. There's Steelers fans out there. There's even Cleveland Browns fans out there.
Oh God, bless
all these normal people out there, including the
Cleveland Jets fans out there, and you know who you are.
Yeah,
Jets fans.
And they're not zealots. So this story explains it well. How many people here have gone to the beach? Most of us, right? Everybody here goes to the beach.
Yeah, Rick, you're talking to a blockchain crowd, so don't take that for granted.
Yeah, there's a lot of basement dwellers and.
Okay, so have you heard about the beach?
Yeah, assume you're on the internet and you can see the beach, right? And so people go to the beach. When you go to the beach, like in San Diego, you might have 400 or 500 people all along the beach, like spread out all along the beach. 400 or 500 people, but you might have 20 or 30 people in the surf. 20 or 30 surfers out there compared to the 500 people on the beach. We are like the surfers. Everybody on crypto Twitter or crypto X, everyone doing these podcasts, everyone making fun of everyone else. Everyone who's making fun of everyone else, which is us making fun of Solana and Solana making fun of Bitcoin and Bitcoin making fun of Ethereum. That's what's going on right now on X. We're the surfers. We're the surfers out there making fun of each other. And the mass adoption, the general population, they're over there on the beach. They don't give a shit. So what do the surfers do? Well, the surfers, they study the tide, the winds, the sun, the moon, the currents, the waves, the rocks. They study all that. They know it in extreme detail because they go out in the surf. But when they're out in the surf, a couple people on the beach might join them because they see it. They go, that looks like fun. I want to join them. And that's kind of how crypto is. We're like those guys out in the surf. Someone sees it and they come and join for some reason, right? But there's still 400 or 500 on the beach. So at the end of the day, when the sun is setting and the tide goes back, those surfers still have to go meet mom and pop on the beach. They still have to share the same parking lot. The surfers, that's us. We need to come into the beach and meet mom and pop on the sand. We can't expect mom and pop to come out into the surf and the waves and the rocks and the wind and the current. They don't know they're going to get killed. Half of them are going to get eaten by a shark. Lots of sharks out there. Sharks are going to eat them up. That's my analogy. That's my analogy. We are the surfers, and we need to meet them over there where the tide meets the beach and the sand. That's where mom and pop is, if you want mass adoption.
I think I like that analogy a lot, right? And it's funny because me and you have a lot of the same kind of history, and we've talked about that in the past about our journey through crypto. And you were one of the first space or podcasts that I watched, and I specifically remember that podcast with Dan back then. And you guys were the only news really, so there was nowhere else to really get your news. So thank you first off for doing all that. But you talk about meeting people on the beach, right? Real world assets, I think, are a way to kind of meet somebody on the beach and we're seeing these big projects such as Chainlink working with JP Morgan and all these other things, bringing supply chain onto the blockchain. What's your thoughts about all this that's going on with real world assets and supply chain tracking?
By the way, like you started talking about beach in California. All I can think about is that Keanu Reeves and Gary Busey movie.
Gary Busey, oh my god.
Yeah. Just that's all I can think about. It's like, get off my surf, man. Yeah. I was also thinking about that. You got some new people coming out there, like the Keanu Reeveses.
We're built different
there, and then the blockchain bros.
Point Break, is that what that one?
Point Break, Point Break. It's like, get off my chain, man.
We're built different. I think a weekend of Bernie's when I think of the beach.
Yeah. That's kind of like a VC chain analogy there. But anyway, yeah. So it's. I mean, I don't know if that analogy actually works too much for RWAs, because RWAs is kind of a different thing, right? So it's like, it's not just about the surf, but it's about like how you get out there in the water versus sitting on the beach, right? So I would say the analogy here is, okay, so like the true blockchain pioneers and the degens and all these guys that are actually on chain there, they are the surfers, right? But that doesn't mean that mom and pop can buy a jet ski and come out there to be with us.
Oh,
yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that the analogy here is that, it doesn't mean that the dad can go and buy a little boat and come out there and hang out where I'm hanging out in the water, right? I mean, we're, granted, probably going to be riding the same waves, but still, we're in the water. We're not on the beach. So that's why I kind of really think that, RWAs, personally, I think RWAs, and I wanted to get your take on this. I just think that is the way. I mean, that is the way, because that is, you're not going to teach my 78-year-old dad to surf, but he's gladly going to take his sailboat out there, and that's something that I think is across the board. If you create instruments for people to be able to participate without it, well, not just without it there being a big barrier of entry, but also RWAs are real. It's like I can point at something. It's like, this could be an RWA. Peter Venkman of the Real Ghostbusters, he made an appearance earlier. He's still here. Peter Venkman could be an RWA. You can tokenize Peter Venkman and put him on chain. And so that's why I think it's really big. So, I just wanted to get your perspective on that. What are you thinking about that being the vehicle for bringing in the masses?
Yeah. So I think RWAs in two different ways. When it comes to RWAs on blockchain for large scale businesses and putting chunks of inventory, chunks of value, items of extreme value on chain, they have a benefit there of proving ownership, right? History or record of ownership. And when it comes to things like retirement funds, like stocks and bonds and things like that go into a fund manager. When I was younger, you would hear the story about, and the stories are real, someone would open a Foot Locker from the grandmother's house after the grandmother passed away and find a giant trove of war bonds in there that they bought for $50, and these things are now worth thousands and thousands of dollars. And so those types of RWAs sit really well with blockchain, because you're just taking a digital representation of this stock or this bond or a silver dollar, okay, and putting that on chain so that it's easier to transfer. Now, the important part, I think, with RWAs is, how do you get the physical asset if you decide you no longer want to sit on the digital representation for speculation purposes, and you actually need the digital asset? And where's the line of demarcation between the speculators and the industry that actually needs those assets? And in the stock market and bond market, that's pretty easy. It's a bunch of speculators trying to buy and trade these assets. In the business world, where people are moving large quantities of products that have extremely high value to them, and it's important that you got it from the right source. That's very important. Those are the kind of things I think people would want to put on the chain. And I'll give you an example. Like when I was in the military, we had these very high critical parts, anything that affected either safety or mission critical, and those things were tracked very heavily from the time they came out of non-destructive testing at the factory until the time you installed it. It required a signature at every checkpoint along the way. The package is intact. You're getting inspected. Okay, before I sign for this, I got to make sure it meets all these requirements, that I have this mission critical part. Now, when it comes to mops and sponges and paintbrushes, no, the Navy didn't have to, do that level of rigor with mops and sponges and paintbrushes, but you certainly needed to do it with mission critical, high value things that of that nature, that they had to be, absolutely pristine and robust when they installed a system. So there's different levels of granularity too. If you're moving large quantities of goods, what level of granularity do you want to track the goods on the blockchain? What's a good representation, and what do you want to store in a database? I don't know, because I'm not in the business world, but I'd imagine those are the kind of problems that you're trying to figure out and solve, Dan and Brian, with Zengate. Like, kind of, what do you guys run into when you're trying to evaluate what's the level of granularity and what type of representation we want on chain? Do we want to represent a model number and a serial number? Do we want to represent a container number? Do we want to represent you can scan the barcode? What kind of things do you want to represent on chain? And then do you want to represent the value of the item on chain as well?
I mean, I think granularity is very much a case by case type of thing, and a lot of RWAs, where one type of RWAs just don't need it. Like, you just don't need to know exactly everything, because number one, there is no real value to that information, because there is such thing as too much information. There's also such thing as information overload when you're actually speaking to, and it also depends on the application, obviously, right? So if you're doing something where traceability is used and tokenization is used for, say, auditing compliance and scoring, right? So if you're doing something like, say, what we were talking about before in our space yesterday with traceability of, say, industrial metals, right? There you need pretty granular traceability, because there's a lot of things there that need to be checked, as you said, and in the case of the military, there's a lot of different checks that need to be made. I mean, versus like, okay, well, I get my apples. Okay, I mean, yeah, it's an organic apple. Okay, I know where it came from. I know the grower. Do I really need to know, as a consumer, do I really need to know the temperature at which it was grown, and the amount of time, and the soil acidity of the place where it was grown? Probably not. So there it is, so it's just basically, it's really up to the user and the user base and your audience. It's who's your audience. If your audience is somebody who needs that granularity, of course, yeah. But if it's somebody, and this is actually something that, kind of going back to what we're talking about application and mass adoption. we give people we expect mainstream audiences to care about tools that they just really shouldn't care about in the mass scale. We care about them, and that's fine. But yeah, no, I mean, you're never going to be in a position where you're going to be able to explain to your average grandma how to use a full node wallet. Doesn't matter how decentralized and secure it is. There's just never going to be a sect of grandmas that's going to be into full node wallets. They just won't, and we have to accept that. So it's just like that. It's like that here. RWAs are really. It's a really broad sweeping term. It's a fad right now, right? In a way, in blockchain, because it's something to kind of grab onto to hedge against versus, stuff that's really just perceived value, like say NFTs and such, and coins without, like meme coins or whatever, coins that don't have anything to back up that value claim. And people are just really into that, and so that's what I think. That's why I think it's important. And that's also what I think the answer to your question here is that it just really depends. It depends. There's never one straight answer to that.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because items of high value or critical value. James said in the chat, medical devices, critical things, mission critical, high value,
right?
In level granularity. What do you want to track? And what's interesting is if you say, okay, which blockchain do I use? So what if your supplier uses blockchain Cardano and the shipper uses blockchain Algorand, and then your receiving device is on blockchain Polygon? Okay, and how do people make those entries in the blockchain? And this is where the application layer and the aggregation layers will come in handy, such as aggregating metadata, because all of these chains, you can put metadata in some way, shape, or form, and somehow you're gonna have to be able to read that data and say, how did this get from point A to point B? Did we have to go through 3 different blockchain systems in order to do it, or has that been abstracted from the users to the point where you can very quickly get the data? But you could tell that it's absolutely short. I was watching that clip from your previous podcast with the gentleman who, what industry? Oh, he was also in the tea industry, and he said, when you have businesses that are worth 100 million and 200 million dollars, your reputation is important, and you don't want to compromise your reputation based on some transient piece of data that was lost.
I mean, it's it's kind of like one of those things. It's about necessity, and it's about also why is the necessity there? Because people are just they don't want to be screwed around with. I mean, as James said, physical asset authenticity was hard to prove until blockchain. It is pretty hard. It's in the words of George W. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, well, you ain't gonna fool me again. And that's kind of what the paradigm here is. You ain't gonna fool me again if we utilize these things.
Yeah, it'll be good on blockchain futures for guys like me. Like I'm not buying large quantities of stuff because I'm not a manufacturer, right? But commodity futures. Can you imagine if you put commodity future RWA, like I call it an RWA? It's not the commodity itself. The commodity is the RWA. But then take the commodity future, put that on chain, and allow people to trade it. They could program swaps on Axo Trade and set a time and set all the parameters for when they want to make the trade.
Yeah, I wish there was this platform out there that actually did that. Traded commodities, putting them on chain.
I don't know.
There's a lot of people doing that, and it's just we don't see it because they don't make a lot of noise about it. There are DAOs on Cardano that own real estate in Colorado.
Yeah. With real estate, it's actually but this is actually you get into this other part of RWAs, and that is what exactly are you tokenizing? Are you tokenizing an actual certificate that is a certificate of ownership that you can use to claim the RWA? Or are you tokenizing the data that goes along with the RWA, which is actually just as powerful and important? And this is what we do with Palmyra. The tokenization is not of the actual asset ownership, but the asset data, which is extremely valuable and sometimes even more valuable than the asset. Because asset without data has like 20% of its value. Asset with data has that extra 80% added to it. And so, I mean, this is you brought up real estate, right? Real estate is kind of a tricky thing with RWA. So, of course, yeah, you can tokenize real estate. It's actually, I mean, from just a technological standpoint, yeah, you just have a deed, right? You have this deed, you put it on chain, right? That's you tokenized it. But then what? How do you enforce that? How do you enforce a tokenized deed? What laws are in place to say that this particular deed that is on chain is exactly the same thing as this written deed? And this is actually what these and we have Sam and I actually have a friend who's the CEO of a company called Proppy. And Proppy, maybe some of you know of this company. They've been around for a long time, and they've actually, I mean, literally since like 2017 or something. They've been tokenizing real estate since then. And one of the issues they ran into is basically enforcement. And so what they actually ended up doing is they ended up creating. So with every single piece of real estate, you create an LLC, or you use an LLC that actually owns the piece of real estate, which then the LLC contract is the one that's on chain and it's recognized, right? So that's how you do it. So it's not like a direct thing. You'd think it's a direct thing, but then that's what it is, It's about enforcing. I mean, and that's pretty much with anything, It's we see this. I was seeing this tweet from, I think, Mario Newfall about how the International Criminal Court put out arrest warrants for like Netanyahu and then the leader of Hamas, and it's like, yeah, okay, you might as well put out an APB to Car 54. Like, how are you going to enforce that?
Yeah,
what are you going to do? And that's the same thing here. How are you going to enforce this certificate? So that is actually an issue, and I think, and I kind of want to get your take on that. I mean, what do we need? What do we need to get there? And actually, what direction do you think it'll take? Do you think that we're going to go to where we do have legislation saying that this deed is on-chain deed is the same as the paper deed, or are we going somewhere else? Are we going towards a more complicated or complex ownership structures that are kind of using, kind of understanding how to navigate the jurisdictional seas to have these assets actually being, enforceable and regulated? So, I mean, what are your takes on that?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, because a lot of times I see people say blockchain fixes this, and I'm like, no, it doesn't. Blockchain gives you a very robust system to store data, extremely immutable, almost indisputable way of storing information. So I'll roll back to my story about the critical parts. Okay. So these critical parts came at a cost. When you have a part that comes from the time it leaves non-destructive testing until it's installed in the system, somewhere along the way, it has to be shipped, it has to be stored, it has to be inventoried and checked, and then eventually it's needed and installed in the system. It has these checkpoints all along the way. These checkpoints come with a lot of overhead. Blockchain does not automate that. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a database or a blockchain. Somebody has to scan the data. Somebody has to type it into the web browser, right? And so, and then, there's systems of checks and balances in place. Is the person qualified to be checking the data? Is the person the right person to be putting that data in the database? Is the correct data in the database, or is the correct data on the blockchain? So there's a certain amount of overhead that comes along with that. And I think where we find the value of blockchain is, where does it make things easier in that process where's the current pain points? Like if I have a hand scanner that I can scan a barcode on items that are moving and it generates an NFT, if this person bought it, great. It's like a receipt, but it's a high value item. So you don't want just a piece of paper receipt that falls away. You want proof of ownership. That person owns this item, high value item, or whatever that asset is. I don't know if I answered the question. I think I went off track.
Oh, it's okay. We're a multi-track type of show. We multi-tracking it. Listen, Rick, I think you and I can go on about this for quite a bit.
Before we close this off, Dan, I need to know: are we going for tacos after this?
So this is, listen. If you wouldn't have jumped the gun, I was going to say that before we go, we have to make sure that we know it is Taco Tuesday.
I'm going to Rick's house. Look at those homemade tacos.
And it's time for homemade tacos by Rick. This is what Rick is working with. So not only is Rick our like OG Cardano community podcast YouTuber guy, not only is Rick our neighborhood D-Rep now, he's been accepted. He is one of the D-Rep Boy Scouts. You know, I forgot. No, that's not.
Vulcan. No, just do the Vulcan one.
Yeah. No, it's the Scout's honor is this one. Yeah, there you go. Scout's honor. I was a Boy Scout actually. It was kind of a thing. Yeah. So not only is he a D-Rep, not only is he a critical thinker, but he is also a taco lord. Is that the correct way to put it? He is your taco emperor.
The emperor of tacos, yes. I like that.
The emperor of tacos, the CEO of tacos on Cardano is Rick. And I don't know if anybody can take that title from you.
Well, thank you. I will wear that crown happily and make some tacos. And I do have tacos. Those are keto tacos, by the way. Those shells are keto.
We haven't, listen, in Japan, we haven't figured out the whole low carb thing yet. Okay.
Are there tacos in Japan?
There are tacos, actually. Actually, there's a Mexican restaurant in Osaka run by a Mexican guy from Canada.
He's probably
great stuff. Yeah, great stuff. We used to go to Taco. There was actually Taco Tuesday. We used to go to Taco Tuesday quite a bit. I think I brought Charles there one time, actually. And knowing Charles, he goes to a taco place and he orders like dessert, and then he complains about it. He's like, "This dessert sucks." Like, it's a taco place. Why don't you get tacos? Like, yeah, their dessert kind of sucks, but it's not a dessert place. Yeah, we are actually. Fias Bass, are you going to bring on some coffee producers soon? We're working on it, actually. Definitely in the works. We're speaking to some. We're speaking some from Honduras, actually, as well as Ethiopia. They're known for coffee. They are.
Coffee grows in the tropic areas. Doesn't grow.
Coffee, and just ridiculously spicy food. Yeah, I don't know if you ever had Ethiopian food, but that stuff is great. But it'll burn a hole through your being if you're not careful. So we're working on that. Listen, Rick, look, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, to see you, to go for tacos with you. Last time, I think it was Austin, we went for tacos, and that's not okay. So we need to fix that. I don't know if you're going to be in Dubai, where are you going to be next? Where am I going to see you next? But we have to do that again.
We're going to be in Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas.
El Gordo's. Yes. Thank you.
So the two I'm definitely hitting up this year is Vegas and Dubai. And I can't make too much other stuff because I have a lot of families. My other daughter's going to have a baby this summer, and I want to go help her out for a period of time. Me and my wife and her mother-in-law, we're going to take turns visiting. And so I'm going to time it so I want, that's the number one priority this year. My oldest daughter had a baby in January. And so that's why my wife isn't here to get the dogs under control. She's up being grandma. So she's helping out over at my daughter's house while they go to work.
You got your papa problems. It's not a problem, but my oldest son figured out lollipops today.
Cool.
Yeah, he got one and now his mouth is all blue. My youngest son figured out lollipops today as well because they're one and the same because I only have one son. Yeah. So like that's what I'm dealing with, lollipops. And
are you still in Japan?
Why do people ask me that? Are you still in the U.S., Rick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Japan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm just checking. I should have known by that door behind you.
Yeah. Like doors like this. And if you see the ceiling, you got like the wooden edge to all the ceilings.
The real giveaway would be the air conditioning unit that's electric and it's sitting up in the corner of the room. You have one.
That's over there.
But I know it's there.
I disguised it. I got
Brian,
the American
flag
behind me. I'm like, yeah, guys, I'm in America. It's America. Okay?
No, you got to get when you go to Japan, Brian. You got to get a spaghetti sandwich.
Like a spaghetti sandwich?
Brian, when you go to 7-Eleven in Japan, my favorite food in Japan is at 7-Eleven. Not the spaghetti sandwich. My favorite is the triangle sandwich is my favorite. But there's a hot dog bun with spaghetti in it.
You mean spaghetti or do you mean soba? Because there's a soba dog.
No, it has noodles with tomato sauce on it.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's probably a spaghetti dog because they like these. And I can't stand them. Actually, they have these soba dogs, and they're obnoxiously sweet. And I just eat it. I'm like, it doesn't work for me. Japanese people love it though, but not me. Yeah, sandwiches are really good. Brian, don't worry about it. When we bring you to Zengate Osaka, we will keep you well fed. I think you might be malnourished, but we will fix that. And
malnourished.
And listen. Let's
go to Gordo's in Vegas, and I'll be happy, buddy.
That is done.
Is that the one where they had the rotisserie?
Yes. You got to come.
Yeah, that's the one. Okay. That's the one where you stand in line and you have to decide, right? So you can't get a whole bunch of different ones because you're going to be there for 3 hours, standing in all these different lines. You're like, okay, which one am I doing? Am I doing the carne asada? If I'm doing the tripas, am I doing the cabeza? Well, what am I doing? The thing about it is the thing about tacos is that you really have to live in a heavily Mexican populated area to start really appreciating the real deal, which is like the carne asada and the el pollo and the chicken and the steak that's made for us lightweights. The real deal is like the tripas. And you're not doing it right unless you're eating some entrails or brains.
Yeah, you don't know what it is, but man, is it good. Anyway, I don't want to know what's in it. I'm just gonna eat it.
It's delicious. I mean, like the first time I had a tripas, like my favorite tacos are actually tripas tacos, and the first time I had it, I'm like, what the hell is this? They're like, oh, it's tripas. It's intestine. I'm like, what now? But that's the stuff that I love, like the tripas and that stuff was great. And and beef tongue, that's another one that's really good. The beef tongue tacos.
Beef tongue before.
Anyway, you're making me hungry right now, and it's too late for tacos. It's already past 12. So listen, Rick.
Yeah.
Great to have you. We're definitely doing tacos in Vegas. Brian, great
I'll arrange it. We're having tacos in Vegas.
Yeah, for the 6th time today. But it's always a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the show. And we definitely should pick this up again. This is a really great conversation, and we should definitely talk again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
You.
All right. Well, everybody. And so this is Dan coming to you barely alive from Japan.
Can I get a high five?
That is the other way. Rick, come on. Oh yeah. Okay, Brian, come on. Do that. It's the other way. And you look like you're walking like an Egyptian.
Use your other hand.
The other hand.
I can't use my other hand. My other hand goes that way. Right?
Yeah, but that's what it's supposed to do.
I'm turned. That's wise because I'm turned. I'm trying to hide the stiller symbol from you, Dan.
Next week, Same time, same channel, same place, probably different guests, but it's always great. It's always the mainstream. This is the mainstream, okay? There's no other stream but the mainstream. So until next week, this is Dan, barely alive and half asleep from Japan because it's past 12 already and I'm an old man, signing off.